Hi, you're listening to After Dinner Conversations, short stories for long discussions. What that means is we get short stories, we select those short stories, and then we discuss them specifically about the ethics and the morality of the choices the characters and the situations put us in. Why did you do this? What makes you do this? What makes us good people? What's the nature of truth, goodness, all of that sort of stuff. And hopefully we're all better, smarter people for it and learn a little bit about why we think the way we think. So thank you for listening. Okay, and welcome back once again to After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussion. We're going to try not to start this on a downer, but that last one is real sad. It's a real. It was rough. It was rough. Siena's Monster.
It was good.
It was
It's
good.
just heavy.
My tear ducts are still clearing themselves out.
We're still talking about it. So that story was a good one.
There was something in my eye. That's all. Just something in my eye. So I am your co-host Colby here with Ashley.
Hello.
And Jeremy.
Hello.
And Sarah.
Hi there.
You don't mind that I do Jeremy before you, do you, Sarah? I can mix it up in the future if you want.
It never occurred to me to be insulted by that, but now that you bring it up, I'm definitely insulted.
You better always introduce me as number one.
Yeah.
I care. No, I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding.
I need one of those D&D four-sided dice. I'll just keep rolling the triangle to find out who goes first. It's like, and Sarah roll, and Sarah
And
roll,
Sarah.
and Sarah roll. Dang it, I can't. Why does it keep coming up four? Who broke the dice? So yeah, please like and subscribe. Please go to our website, afterdinnerconversation.com. We're discussing stories from our magazine that comes out monthly. It's if you get it through our website, it can be $4.95 a month if you use the discount code HAPPY at checkout for a year subscription. So it's like a year for $5, like super good deal. Or you can buy individual issues through Amazon for $2.99. This is the, what did you guys say, March
2021?
March 2021. And this one is Echo is what it's called. Did I not bring it up? What was I
Echo
thinking?
by Jenna Glover.
Do you want to take this one, Ashley, since I don't have it up right now?
No.
Okay, then I will do it. Not a problem. I got this. I got this as soon as I pull it up. I have got this, stalling for time. Okay, so
Echo by Jenna Glover.
There we go.
The main character's name is Martha.
You're doing great. I don't know what.
Okay.
No, I'll do it.
So either way, she wakes up. She's a live, legit, real person. There's some bot war going on with AI intelligence. And she basically faints, wakes up in a hospital, and realizes that they are turning her into a robot, and she is no longer who she was before.
That's pretty good sound.
She's no longer Martha. She is known as E47. Basically goes by the name Echo. And she's trying to wants to rekindle her life before as a human, but has to come to terms that she is now a robot, in essence.
An android, yeah.
An android. And it's basically about her struggle with coming to terms with that, wanting to see her son, who she's not allowed to contact, not allowed to contact her husband. She visits her own gravesite to see where allegedly she's buried before they had basically implanted her mind into this
synthetic
body. And interestingly enough, she meets a gentleman who's doing a journalistic story about these robots and how they're living in society, because they just went through a huge war against robots, and the ones that aren't programmed to do combat are allowed to live amongst the people. And she's obviously one of those that are not combative, so she's allowed to live amongst people. And he wants to try to prove that in their current society, you cannot take the word of a robot for what's true or false in instances of things that have happened. You can only take the word of basically humans, for example, during a police report.
That part's not quite right. You're
sorry.
Closer. You're like 80% there on all this.
Jump in. Take it.
Yeah, no worries. He basically downloads her entire life history
Yes.
by turning her off. He finds an off switch and he turns her off without her permission. So she's awake, but she can't move her body. He then downloads all of her information because he wants to show the sort of
Her life story.
yeah, her life
Yeah.
story and the inequalities and the struggles that these synthetic people are going through. And no one would believe her if she said it, but if they can see the sort of facts, the raw data, then that would prove it. Because these synthetic life forms, even though she was once a human, now as a synthetic life form or as an android, she has been stripped of many of her rights, such as she can only go to places a certain number of times in a week. Like she can only go to the grocery store for, I think, like one time or a certain amount of time in a week.
She has a barcode across her forehead.
Right, to identify her to everyone. She can only have jobs that do not require interaction with technology. She can only have limited access to other androids in only limited ways. I assume that they never like rise up. They never like compare notes.
And can no longer interact with her previous life.
Right. She can't. And even when she goes to a grocery store, she goes a second time in a week and an alarm goes off being like, why are you here a second time? Because they're wanting to make sure that these people are entirely isolated from higher job positions, from, she can only do the most menial work that humans no longer want to do. And so it's really like they've created a slave class.
Second-class citizens, for
Yeah.
sure.
And so he's trying to show that and prove that, and that's why he's downloading it to show people what her life has become. Yeah, I think that's Jeremy. Can you think of anything else that we missed? Or
No,
Sarah?
I think you got all the main points.
I got the sense that she was kidnapped and she was being used as a weapon by the AI during the war, and that she's just kind of
Right. So I guess to that point,
part I didn't quite get,
leftovers
yeah.
from that.
Yeah. So she didn't know she was replaced, and they think it was about 3 years that she spent in hiding as an android for about 3 years. They think she died 3 years ago, and that the androids replaced her. They copied her memories, made this new person, and let her be a sleeper agent to some
Right. That's right. Because
So she was just going about her life as normal after
trying
the
to
war.
have kids. And
right. And she wasn't able to get pregnant because of that,
Right.
because she was unknowingly. Right. That's one of the parts that was a little bit confusing, was many of the androids prior to the war didn't even know they were androids, or like during the war they like swapped out people or something. And so there are these basically people who don't, until they die, don't know that they weren't actually human.
Right.
And matter of fact, I think in the story, doesn't one of them go rogue? And it's in the news or something.
Right.
Yeah, and she wondered, like, is it bad code, or did the person not even know that they were?
Kind of right. Honestly, how I took that part of the story was, this is the media bending what happened. If that had been a person, it just would have been a person went crazy. Here were the extenuating circumstances, and killed their lover or killed these people who were subjugating them, and in some way. But because this person was an android, suddenly it's a sleeper agent, and it's all about that fact, not about the circumstances around them killing the people at this restaurant. When that could have just been something else, and the media is just ignoring that because they're an android.
Because that's the framework of every problem, is the android problem.
Right.
Yeah, that could be, because that would help perpetuate this idea of having an enslaved class.
Yeah.
So one of the things I found interesting about this story, since I teach history, U.S. history, is many of the sort of slave laws prior to the Civil War are very similar to what's going on here, right? There are laws about slaves not being able to get together in groups of more than 3, that they can't leave their place of employment without permission from their owner. She has to continually check in with this person. There are certain jobs that they're not permitted to do that are considered skilled jobs. They're not permitted to have access to technology, in this case, reading. They're not. Right.
There's a lot of similarities for Jim Crow laws as well.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Because these are all the things you would do to keep a sentient
like an intelligent class from uprising, right? From understanding that they're being enslaved. Yeah. Which also brings us to the interesting point of it as well, is the guy who's trying to help her, what does he do to like not to get the story out? Is he paralyzes her without her consent.
And
Which
says
is sort of
and tells her that he has the right to do that.
right, which is kind of this thing where it's like, even the most anti-slavery people were still racist. They just weren't in favor of slavery, right? Because there was no not racist person in the 1800s. There were just people that were anti-slavery.
And he still just wanted to use her story for his own personal gain.
For his own personal purpose. That's a good point. Yeah. So, Jeremy, this seems to me like a story that's right up your alley because it's elements of Blade Runner. It's elements of...
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell. It's elements
Gattaca,
of a lot of things.
yeah.
Gattaca, a whole bunch of them. What was your take on this when you read it? This seems like the kind of story you would like.
Yeah, definitely, and it asks a lot of interesting questions just about how do you know what's real, and what is it that makes us up as a person? The idea that you are the sum of all your memories. That is, what makes you who you are. Yeah. That's your programming in a sense. So it's well put together, and it asks a lot of interesting questions around those indirectly. About, what does this mean?
I think that's one of the parts that I thought was interesting about it. And a lot of this, I feel like this had a lot of flavor of Blade Runner to it as well, in the sense that they start, in Blade Runner, they start infusing the Nexus with memories, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, I think one of the interesting things about this is she remembers everything. So, but they keep telling her, you're not that person anymore. That person's dead. Which of course begs the sort of, I guess you could even call it like a metaphysical, philosophical question. Like, if I remember everything, if I remember my life, isn't that me? Like, so how can you say I'm dead? Like, I remember being born. I remember growing up. I remember my 3rd grade birthday
You remember
party,
being born?
or whatever.
All of Martha's memories, right?
Yeah, right. If I have all of Martha's memories.
That would be cool.
Aren't
traumatic memory.
Yeah. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to remember
man.
being born.
No.
But I mean, you know what I mean.
It was a
Yes.
dark tunnel.
Right. I mean, just this idea of
step into the light.
Carol Ann. Yeah. Maybe
We're
that's
trying
what
so
Polter-
hard to make this funny.
I know. I'm sorry. I went
So
on a
sorry.
tangent.
It's okay. It can be funny. No, I think that was one of the things I thought was terribly interesting about this story was, like, aren't I simply the sum of my memories? And so they kept telling her, like, Martha's dead. And it's like, if I
You're not
remember
Martha.
everything, Martha's not dead.
Which is really I think a flawed thing about these androids is that they weren't able to erase a person's memory. Like
you got to clear some of that out.
Yeah.
If you're going to make it a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or help them. They didn't offer really any therapy.
Well, they don't see her as a human.
Right.
With actual human emotions and the capacity for.
And they keep telling her that, right? Like they keep saying Martha's dead. Quit calling yourself Martha. Martha's dead. You're Echo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Sarah. What were your thoughts when you read this? This was another one that was a little gut wrenching.
Oh, she loses her child, and I know that it's not supposed to be her child, but that's so.
But again, that's
so
who
sad.
she is.
That's right, because it was Martha's child, and Martha is dead, so the dad now has the child,
Right.
and she's not permitted to go see her child anymore.
Nope. The father wants nothing to do with her anymore.
Yeah.
The boy is just in his custody only, and she's not allowed to even send him a birthday gift anonymously.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Like,
doesn't she go to the?
Nothing.
I think at one point doesn't she go to the park to just like sit on a bench and across from the school and watch from a distance as the father picks her up from school?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
This reminds me a lot of Castaway when Tom Hanks returns home and he wants his whole like staying alive was having the memories of Helen Hunt, his wife in the movie and Castaway, only for him to come home and realize that life has moved on without you, like, and having to start a new life,
Yeah.
knowing you have these memories, and they have memories of you as well, but like you can't even.
But you're a different person to them now.
Exactly. Anyway.
I feel like this was just a terribly cruel story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and it presents a lot of parallels, especially about slavery and any second class citizen, any group of people who are subjugated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought one of the things I thought was interesting as well is they talk about how she had voted for the stripping away of some of the rights of androids that she now was suffering from having stripped away. And it's a little bit sort of akin to this idea of, the laws that sometimes get passed in America about it being illegal to interact with or help or provide services to illegal immigrants. Because you're like, well, they're not people. They're not here legally. They don't have the same rights as you and me. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, but now you are an immigrant. Like, and now you're in their situation, and you start to get a sense of like you're having you've created a second class citizen.
You can see why they want to keep them as a second class citizen. You have, even though they're androids and they eat, they don't need to eat.
Yeah.
There isn't that they do certain biological processes, but they're not.
It's not required.
They're not required in the same sense as the humans do, and so that might be seen as like a threat. And who knows what else they can live without that humans necessarily, they need to survive.
Yeah.
It's like you created a superior being, and before they can figure that out, you better make them a second-class citizen and everyone else agree with you.
Right. Oh, it's weirder than that. The androids seem to have created themselves.
Right, because they were
created by
own.
humans. She was created by AI. That's what it seems. Did you guys get that from the story?
Right.
Okay.
But she was not manufactured by a human, but manufactured by the AI uprising.
Okay, that they basically birthed her. I didn't understand that when I read it, but I believe you.
Right, and that's because, again, these were all sleeper agents. So as part of that war, they were going through and replacing people with androids as sleeper agents.
Sure, but
it wasn't people doing that. It was the androids were starting to manufacture themselves and doing this.
But I assumed that she was at some point a real person because she had a child.
She was a real person. I think she was abducted somehow. And replaced.
For the war, they were like, we need more agents.
Oh, okay.
She remember she like fell asleep at work or whatever. And apparently,
didn't it happen before that though? It happened during the war.
Yeah.
And
she
passed out at work. That's when they discovered that she was an android because she had to be taken to the hospital.
That's right.
And then it was 3 years later that they woke her up or whatever.
So maybe that's part of their agreement. Like AI, you are allowed to do this. You are allowed to take people and turn them into bots as long as we can treat them like second-class citizens. Maybe that's the exchange.
This is one of those few instances where...
Like it's kind of like a military service. Like we can call upon these people, but once we make the change, because they're superior, they're going to be a second-class citizen. And so they're like,
that's because the humans won the war.
That's because humans
and
won.
These are the leftover agents.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I got.
And now they're slowly discovering these people who had been replaced by androids as sleeper agents, and as they discover them, they're...
I gotcha. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
That's okay. It's a little bit complicated. This is one of the few instances where like you kind of wish you could email the author a few questions.
The timeline is a little bit strange.
Yeah,
a little bit. You get lost in the timeline, but it's still good. I mean,
it's still
to
good.
Me, it didn't detract from the story at all.
Agreed. So
it gives you a lot to talk about.
It does. So let me ask a couple of directed questions now that we've sort of got the beginnings of this fleshed out. One of the assumptions that this story makes, I think, is that society is benefited by having for lack of a better term, a slave class or a second class, whether you want to call them slaves or
servant class
or illegal immigrants that don't have access to the same services as citizens or tiers of citizenship. I'm going to ask, maybe this is an easy question, maybe it's not. Do you tend to agree or disagree with that? Like, does there always need to be someone to mow the lawn? And does that person always need to be not like the rest of us?
No, I don't. It's necessary for a industrial capitalism, but it's not necessary for society.
Okay.
You know, it depends on the society that you
How it's
want
structured.
to have. Right.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary to have a serving class.
There does need to be people to do that work, but they don't have to be second-class citizens.
Right.
They
Somebody's
should
got-
be treated
somebody's
with the
gotta pick up
same
the
dignity.
trash.
Yeah, but they deserve the same dignity as the CEO of whatever a corporation deserves.
But
right?
isn't
they
that
deserve to be treated with the same level of humanity, and that's what
Sure,
they're not
but-
doing here.
But isn't that a big ask for humanity?
Oh
to-
my gosh, it seems like
to
it, doesn't it?
to say that, like, you know, that the person who works in the back kitchen of the restaurant is the same as the doctor who does brain surgery.
Or because you weren't born here
Right.
and you came to this country in a different way than, I was born here, you're seen as different.
Well, yeah, we have to be careful of the signals that we give to our children, don't we? Like, you don't want to grow up and be a garbage man, so that child is going to grow up and look down on garbage men.
Right.
You know.
By the way, make a good living.
Yeah. See, it's
Yeah.
you have to be oof.
Right.
It
Really,
does
you
seem
don't
like-
want to grow up and work in food service because they don't make a good living.
Right.
Because they're not a protected class.
Right. But
Yeah,
then somehow
gee,
you need
I
to.
wonder why we look down on people who flip burgers, because we tell our kids all the time, you're
Right.
going to be a burger flipper if you don't
Yeah.
study. And so we've created this situation where we grow up, like, we're a product of that. Now we're adults, and what do we see is people like verbally assaulting the people
Yeah.
who make food as if they're lesser people.
Hi, this is Colby, and you are listening to After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussions. But you already knew that, didn't you? If you'd like to support what we do at After Dinner Conversation, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/After Dinner Conversation. That's right, for as little as $5 a month, you can support thoughtful conversations like the one you're listening to. And as an added incentive for being a Patreon supporter, you'll get early access to new short stories and ad-free podcasts, meaning you'll never have to listen to this blurb again. At higher levels of support, you'll be able to vote on which short stories become podcast discussions, and you'll even be able to submit questions for us to discuss during these podcasts. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being the kind of person that supports thoughtful discussion.
Well, yeah, we have to be careful of the signals that we give to our children, don't we? Like, you don't want to grow up and be a garbage man, so that child is going to grow up and look down on garbage men.
Right.
You know.
By the way, make a good living.
Yeah. See, it's
Yeah.
you have to be oof.
Right.
It
Really,
does
you
seem
don't
like-
want to grow up and work in food service because they don't make a good living.
Right.
Because they're not a protected class.
Right. But
Yeah,
then
gee,
somehow
gee,
you need
I wonder
to.
why we look down on people who flip burgers, because we tell our kids all the time, you're
Right.
going to be a burger flipper if you don't
Yeah.
study. And so we've created this situation where we grow up, like, we're a product of that. Now we're adults, and what do we see is people like verbally assaulting the people
Yeah.
who make food as if they're lesser people.
Right. Yeah.
Or
So
teachers.
Oh, yeah,
right.
don't
And
get
then
me
that's the
started
thing,
on
right? So
teachers.
so it sounds like what you're saying is that the signals that we give our kids end up being about, like, what kind of jobs that pay better or whatever are then the things that they internalize as to the people that are worth more,
The worth of people.
Yeah.
Right.
the value of people.
The value of people
Yes.
comes down to how much money they make, almost
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. But then doesn't that support the idea that there does need to be, like, a servant class?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, is that people do need to do those jobs. We don't have, it's not necessary to treat them with less dignity.
Okay.
That's the narrative that has to be switched in order for our society to become more equitable, like more egalitarian, is the narrative that those people are defective somehow because they are flipping burgers for a living, or they are deserving of less money, less dignity. They deserve to be treated poorly by customers because of what that whole narrative has to be switched.
So
And that's a big struggle.
In this story, Sarah, are you in favor of the android uprising?
That would
Like-
seem that way, huh?
Yeah.
That's the impression I'm getting from what you're saying, is that it's not fair to sort of strip rights away from people, even if those people aren't technically people.
Oh, it's just this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great question about what is a person? What makes us
Yeah.
human? Because
Yeah.
we're not talking about somebody who's different because of the color of their skin. We're talking about a character who's different because she literally is not human,
Yeah.
but she feels human.
I grew up
right?
too much on Star Trek. Like, I'm totally down for that. Like, once they convinced me that Data was a sentient person, that an android could be, like, it wasn't hard
Yeah.
for me to watch Voyager and be like, oh yeah, like the emergency medical personnel hologram. Cool. Like, I'm good with
That's
that.
a person.
That's a
Yeah.
person. Like, you don't even need to be physical. You can just be a bunch of software. Like, or the movie Her, or, you know, like, I don't know what, I don't know, for me, like, I don't know what it means to be human, but I know it when I see it. And boy, this lady in the story sure does seem like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're just going to ask the question, like, does she deserve those rights? Yes, she
Right.
does.
Okay, so here's a question. So if there were a way, like, okay, you are now Echo, and as part of this, we're going to remove your memories of being human, leaving you with your base personality.
Yeah, then I don't think it's a person anymore, maybe.
Right. What is...
It would have given her the opportunity to start over.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
I
she's
don't know,
in
this
a lot
goes-
of pain in this story. Like,
She
she's
is,
in
and a
so
lot-
much pain.
I think, and she's in a lot of pain because of the memories she has, but I think she's also in a lot of pain because of the rights that she not only doesn't have, but the
Mhm.
rights that she remembers having.
Right.
Right?
And
She
s-
remembers being able to do these other things. I think, if I had to guess, that even if she didn't remember having those rights, like, I tend to think that a person understands they want freedom. Even if you don't have to learn it. Like, you just have a sense
You have
that
to-
like I deserve this, you know? So I think I fall personally, Sarah. I think I fall in the category of, even if they stripped her of her history and just made her a shell of a person, I think she's gonna know. Like, I don't know.
And still not have access to opportunities.
Well, now
Yeah.
it's almost like this other species has now emerged on the planet that humans have to make space for.
Yeah.
She may not be human, but she's still a being, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a deep philosophical question, right? This is the tough one.
But
I
we
don't know.
don't even do that with existing species on our planet. We treat certain animals as second
We
class.
don't even do that with humans on our planet.
Yeah,
You
we're
know?
really terrible at all these questions as a
Yeah.
species.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, let me look at some of our questions that we have, since my brain's hurting. My brain's hurting. I'm gonna go with the I think therefore I am, by the way, as I'm scrolling. Like, if you can ask the question, then the answer is yes. Like, if you can ask the question, am I alive? Like, the answer just became yes. As soon as you're capable of answering it. Okay, so first question that we have, just to try and bring this to a point. Number one, is Martha dead? They keep telling her Martha is dead. Do you personally think Martha is dead, or do you think she's still Martha?
Yeah, the original Martha is dead, but this person, Echo, has all of Martha's memories. And so is Martha at this point.
So you're going,
You know-
Martha is not dead.
She's in a quantum state.
Dude, you're killing me, man.
Wild.
The original Martha is dead, but Echo as Martha is not dead.
This
so
is like
Martha
the Queen.
is still
Like,
alive in
the
this
Queen
sense.
is dead, long live the Queen, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
You
I
know,
agree with
so-
Jeremy.
That's always a good take. Sarah, is Martha dead?
No, Martha's
Yeah.
not dead.
I'm a hard no on
Her
this
old
one,
body
too.
was just a shell.
Yeah,
But that's oof. That's like a religious question there.
How very Scientologist
Yeah.
of you.
You know what it
geez,
also
really?
is?
I'm very Scientologist. I
Yeah,
just
your
got
meat
called.
shell. has passed
It's
away.
also the what is it? The ship of Theseus or whatever. What am I
Yes.
thinking?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
talked
like
about that
everything's
recently.
been replaced, but
Or was
just
that in
because
Doctor Who?
I feel like we talk about that one a lot.
that ship
Yeah.
comes up a lot. That ship comes up every fifth episode. Yeah. Um. All right, so I'm curious what your threshold test is here. When does something deserve equal rights? Do we have any
Oof.
threshold tests? Like, if you could give a test, what would that test look like?
When
That
it
you-
says I deserve equal rights, like you
Right.
just answered that question. Am I alive? Yes. Therefore, that being is alive.
So that's
So
it.
immigrants deserve equal rights.
Do what? Say that again.
Immigrants deserve equal rights.
I would argue yes. Yeah.
Even
Ashley, what do you
illegal
think?
immigrants.
Ashley, what do you think? Like, is there some test you could give someone to determine like that they're alive enough to be considered equal?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Man, I thought we were
Fair
talking
answer.
about animals for a
We
second.
could talk about animals.
Because
Oof,
I think
yeah.
it's a given that all humans deserve equal rights, all people on this planet. So at what point? 'Cause
Where do we draw the line?
Echo is a different species in this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. So let me give you an example, Sarah. What about the test they give animals sometimes to see if they recognize themselves in a mirror? Is that enough?
Self-awareness.
Like they put a piece of red, like some red paint or something on the elephant's head, and the elephant's like, "What'd you put on my head?" Because it's like looking in the
Right.
mirror.
They do the same thing with babies. There's an
Yeah.
age at which babies become self-aware, and you can put a red
Yeah.
mark on their head, and if they touch the mirror, they're not self-aware yet. When they touch themselves, they
Yeah.
recognize that
What's in the mirror?
what's in the mirror is them.
Yeah.
Oof.
But we still want babies to have all those rights even before they're self-aware.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say you were pro-abortion until 3 months after birth. That's where I thought that was going. I thought that's where that was going. I'm sorry.
Wow. Oh man.
That's good. I'm glad that's not where you were going.
I feel like I'm setting myself up a lot here. So
Yeah.
I'll just stop talking for a bit. Ashley, you should talk.
Jeremy, Ashley's like, nope. Jeremy, do you have any test you would give if I handed you an amorphous blob and said test it? What would be your test?
Oof. I don't know. You know, the things we've covered, are they self-aware? Can they ask for equal rights? I think those are a good baseline. You
Okay.
know,
I think that-
and then we can argue. And I suppose it depends on what do you mean by equal rights. Do they just deserve
Everything you get.
basic human rights as opposed to rights and privileges in a society?
Yeah.
So I think the greater question here is we are really, really good at taking away people's rights,
Oh yeah.
whereas we're not even able to define when you are deserving of them to begin with. Like, I guess that's kind of like we're really easy to say, "Oh, you did something bad, taking away this right for you to do this."
Like
Or
vote for-
we crossed a country line,
Yeah.
we're going to take this away. We're really good at taking stuff away, but giving them or determining when to return those rights is very wishy-washy for a lot of people.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I'm curious. So we'll start with you, Ashley, in this case. So if you were the main character in this story, Echo, what would you do? Like, would you kill yourself? Would you sort of join the revolution? Would you try and make your way through life the best you could?
At some point you have to realize that she knows she's not human. So she remembers what being human is like,
Yeah.
and she recognizes now that I am not human. Even though I feel human, I'm not. She's seen the rods in her arms. She's seen the plugs
Yeah.
go in her arms. So I was shocked that she didn't have that kind of realization, that this kind of out of body experience, like I am in another body, and just kind of accepting that aspect.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, the way everything's kind of set up, I think you just kind of like
Live your life.
live your life the best you can.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
don't know.
Jeremy,
Right.
what about
and,
you?
and they kind of talk about that in the story. she asks about, what should I be doing if I'm not human? And they're
Right.
like, well, become something better.
Right.
Try to figure out what is your space. And, I feel like, figure out what your space is and what is better. And
Within the confines we've created for you.
Right. And then start advocating for equal rights, or, start doing that fight within the legal system.
So that's your space. If you're Echo in this, you settle in and get your bearing and then start the process.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Sarah, same or different?
Yeah, I feel like that's the only answer for her.
I'm pro los revolucion. I start.
Well,
No,
that's
man,
the
I
only
start- I
answer
start-
she-
I
that's
start-
the only answer available to her.
Yeah.
I get me a gun and I start shooting all the humans.
Now, when you
Oh, Colby.
okay, so I'd like to ask something. When they put her in the new body, does she even look like her old self?
No, I don't think so.
So you have to.
No, they didn't give her a new body as an android. They just gave her a tattoo. So she just woke up as an android. They didn't give her a new body.
Yeah.
She still looks like Martha because
Dang.
the androids
That's
gave her the
right.
Martha body.
That's right.
And so she is Martha. And she just wakes up and they're like, oh, you're an android. Here's your new name and your
Right.
new
3 years ago you
citizenship
died, but you
ID.
didn't know it.
Right. And we've just discovered you're newly aware as an android. So
Gotcha.
now here's what you get to be. But we're not going to do anything to help you other than give you a tattoo and your new identity card.
Oh, it's so unbelievably cruel.
Yeah.
I think it would be really easy for the revolution, though, if you've got enough of the androids to literally go to their loved ones and be like, I know you want to vote against us for our rights, but I am literally the same person. I just have robotic arms and things like that. Like,
And
it's like,
that's what the journalist says he's trying to do, right?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that's the way. The more you can have people realize the thing that they have been voting against is very much not in their best interest. Like they're affected by it. They might think they're not affected. They're like, yeah, bots, they're not me. Androids, they're not me. And then as soon as they realize, oh man, I have been voting against who I literally am, a family member, a loved one, things like that. It's the same way with like immigration. It's like you can hate immigrants and then you realize your second cousin was one and then you're like, but I love this person. I didn't know he was like that. And then you're going to look at it in a different light, have more sympathy, understand the situation, the circumstances, and you might change your tune.
This is also LGBT rights, right? Like in the 70s and 80s, one of the biggest things to change people's minds about LGBT rights is coming out to your family and friends, because then they could say, look, I've known you my whole life. You've always seemed fine. Now that I know you're gay, you're still fine. Like you didn't change just because of what you just told me. So I guess
you aren't a danger to society.
Right.
You are a balanced, well-adjusted human
Right.
being,
So
just a different sexual
right.
orientation.
So it turns out I unknowingly realized gay people are just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, what about Martha's husband? He turns her out.
Her away. Yeah.
Yeah, sends her away.
I'm
when
different
he
than you
finds
guys on that question, by the way. I'm all about bringing. I was not joking. I think I think I'm much more Malcolm X than I am Martin Luther King on this one. Like I don't think a ruling class chooses to give up their ruling status.
out.
They have it.
That is for sure.
They have it.
I-
They have it violently taken from them, or they are given very few options, but it being violently taken from them. Just nobody no billionaire is just suddenly deciding they're giving up their cash. Like no, I think you got to be more militant in this case, but that's just me.
But if you go guns a-blazing, you have to realize her son is now going to see his mom, on television as the bad guy, and all of a sudden you're like, take them down. She's not a good person.
Yeah, because they're violent. Yeah, next thing you know, Black Lives Matter is getting all the bad press. Yeah, everyone's quiet on that one. Yeah, that's what I thought.
The story is just such an interesting parallel.
There's a lot
you
of
can apply
parallels.
this to so many.
To so many.
LGBT
To so many
rights, to
things.
immigrants, to Black Lives Matter, to
Abortion rights.
To abortion rights, yeah, to all of it. And it's just like, and just this idea of like, we take away the rights of people that we consider to be others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we've got 3 settle in and work the systems, and 1 take up arms against your oppressor.
But that's probably a pretty good ratio, Colby, because you do need both activities going on. You need the
Viva la
group that
revolución.
is working internally to make changes, and you need the violent revolutionaries who are, the stick and the carrot. You need both sides of any attempt to change.
You better listen
society.
to the peaceful protesters, or else you're going to get the violent protesters.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like this was the thing with the kneeling at the football game. What's the dude's name? I can't.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, like if you'd have listened just a little bit to Colin Kaepernick, instead of mocking him,
maybe we wouldn't have had some riots.
Right. Like maybe when the person peacefully says, "I have concerns," you don't make fun of him for like trying to express his concerns in a peaceful way. Yeah, I'm not Colin Kaepernick in this story.
I feel you though. You're making a solid point, because if those riots had never happened last year, there would be a lot fewer issues we'd be talking about right now.
I agree.
As a society.
I think the changes that we're seeing in police rulings and the changes that we're seeing in like the way, like there was a change just recently, the National Police Unions organization came out with a new ruling, like an internal ruling, saying that the union would no longer support police officers in court cases defending themselves where they like were in the wrong. Basically saying like, look, if you shoot some random person, no, the union does not have your back. Where previously they provided you legal representation, they defended you, they tried to get your attention. Right across the board, we protect our own. And I don't think that kind of change would ever have happened had there not been hundreds of peaceful protests. Yeah, hundreds of mostly peaceful protests. Because there was no external reason for them to change. Like they were fine with the way things were.
And those protests were largely villainized in the press. And
well, it makes it more interesting, right? Like 100 peaceful protests aren't newsworthy. Like 1 brick through a window is headline news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so one last question and we'll finish up. It's okay we don't do as long for this one because it's a great story. It just doesn't have all the things to talk about. What could you feel that could have been done with Echo to make you feel comfortable with her lack of rights? Like, would just stripping her of her memory have been enough, or would you have need to have done more to be like, okay, it's cool. You're not one of us anymore. You don't deserve our rights. How far would you have had to strip her away?
Yeah, I think you would have had to wipe her memory, and you put in a basic programming. Like, here's your base personality, here's your job, you are just going to be a garbage cleaner, and...
This idea of sort of general AI.
There is no life. There is no life outside of their job. If that's why you're keeping them around to do those menial jobs, then that's all you're doing. You're going to stand at your station, power down, and then power back up to do your job. So what I would find interesting is we're easy to dehumanize these androids. How about I think it would be a lot easier for people to accept stripping away rights if they didn't look like a human. Yeah, like what if they looked like a pole? Like that's going to be a lot easier for people to wrap their head around.
They're like a little box on wheels.
Exactly. You're going to see them as an android, not as a robot, not necessarily as a human.
Yeah. So what's the purpose behind keeping her around at all? Why didn't they just, if they're so scared of these androids that they're stripping them of rights and tattooing them with barcodes on their foreheads, why don't they just power them down as they're discovered?
Nobody wants to pick grapes.
So they want them to have these base level jobs, but they're not doing any of the other work to...
So then it's the cruelty of giving her human memories, emotions.
Of leaving her memories intact. Yeah,
she's not allowed to work with technology. She's not allowed to work in a supervisory capacity, and she's not allowed to take a job that a human is qualified for.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Or has an
Yeah.
interest in.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's asking the question, we are creating AI in order to do jobs.
That we don't want to do.
So like we have the self-checkout at the grocery store.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge leap from that self-checkout robot to Martha
Yeah.
or Echo.
Well, I think it's the difference between sort of specific versus general programming, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there are smarter people than us that probably have thought quite a bit about this. Like one of the ones that
This story definitely makes me feel less smart.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, so I'll give you an example of one that I was like, that kind of blew my mind, and we'll wrap up after maybe this example. So we all have seen the things now with the computer programs that play chess, and they can like crush every chess master. And then they came out with the one that plays Go that can like crush every Go master, the game Go. The most recent one they came out with a year or two ago was one where you give it the game and just let it keep playing and playing and playing, and it becomes a master at any game. Like it learns the game rules, learns
Right.
the game, plays
And
millions
develops its own strategies.
plays millions of iterations of the game, and now it's really good at playing Risk. Right? Having never played a human or never been programmed how to play Risk. Like I feel like that's super close to what we're talking about. Like that's like 30% of the way there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someday Elon Musk is going to tell us he was right. He's going to be like, I told you all. I told you. All right. Any rate, if you've got any comments on this, things that we have not thought about, feel free to email me at you're an idiot at after dinner conversation. No, editor at afterdinnerconversation.com. Because I'd love to hear comments like from people that focus in this area of sort of AI ethics and sentience and all that. That would be so fascinating to hear what people's perspectives are on this. So email me, put it in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or wherever else. That would be really interesting. Or even on our page, our website, you can put comments in the podcast page. I'd be curious to hear, or links, whatever. So you've been listening to After Dinner Conversation.
Yeah.
We have found the story that is beyond our ability level, I think. But good job on the author for writing it, Jenna Glover. It's not beyond her ability level. Yeah. So thank you for joining us, Ashley. Yay.
Yeah, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I feel like it has to be like a telephone call. We always have to say goodbye at the end. All right. Hey, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed listening to this, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. The vast majority of people haven't liked and subscribed, which means maybe it shows up in your algorithm, maybe it doesn't. So don't leave that to chance. Just go ahead and hit that button, and we'd sure appreciate that. And that way we can keep doing what we're doing, and you're not left to the whims of some algorithm. Thanks.